There are two ways to look at this lockdown. Yes, it sucks. That's the main way. I mean, it sucks. We can't leave the house, we can't see friends, we can't do many of the things that we want to do. However, there is one thing which is positive about that, is that we have been given the gift of time. Like, we have more time on our hands than most of us have ever known before. So I've decided to make a series of videos with some ideas and perhaps some inspiration on ways that you can use this time wisely and beat the lockdown. Since this is the first episode, I decided to make a cheesy preview vid to show you what I mean. Hello and welcome to Beat the Lockdown with me, Robbie D. Have you ever thought about learning to juggle? Or maybe learning to juggle, I don't know, 4 balls? 5 balls? Have you ever thought about learning to do the Rubik's Cube? Have you ever thought about learning another language? Vous avez pensé d'apprendre une autre langue? Kunเคยคิดที่จะเรียนภาษาต่างประเทศไหม? Have you ever thought that this looks cool? Be the envy of your colleagues when you finally make it back to work as you spin a pen effortlessly around your fingers without dropping it. It's actually harder than it looks. And there you are. Those are some of the things that I'm going to be covering in this series, where every episode I'm going to give a new activity or idea of things that you can do to beat the boredom of being stuck at home all the time. For the first episode, I'm going to focus on the Rubik's Cube. Now, if the Rubik's Cube doesn't interest you, but some of the other things do, don't worry, please stop the video, choose another episode, because I'm going to be covering a lot of stuff. But today I'm going to give you the basics on how to get into or how to start going about learning the Rubik's Cube. Now, I'm not going to go into great detail on every step that you need to follow. There are plenty of online tutorials for that, but I'm going to give you the overview, so basically the idea of how you solve it. So watch the whole thing through. The idea of today's video is it for you? Is it something that interests you? If you watch the video and say, actually, yeah, that's something that interests me, then you can go ahead and Google it and find more information online. And one last thing that it's important to note before I start the video, you'll notice that I say a lot, this is something you can do yourself. This is something that you have to go to Google for. Basically, you know, I believe that you should try to get most of it done by yourself. So that means figuring it out. You can find everything online. You can find out even the simplest bits, how to do them online, and you don't need to work anything out for yourself. But I reckon that you take the challenge and you do the first 2 layers. So you do the first 2 layers by yourself, and then you need to check YouTube or Google for the last layer, but I'll explain everything in the video. So, to start solving a Rubik's Cube, you need to start with one side. I recommend white because it's the easiest to find, but you want to cover one side in white. A lot of people say that you should start with a white cross, and that's great, so do try to get the white cross first, but the point is that if you get some other pieces of the puzzle locked in at the same time, then that's fine, because the target is to get one side covered in white. Voila. Once you have one side covered in white, the next thing you do is not to do a second side, but rather to do the first layer above the white. Okay, so we can see there you have white on this side, but these pieces are not in a normal order. So these are not all blue or all orange, they're mixed. So the next thing we do is to solve this first layer. I'm not going to give you step-by-step instructions on how to solve this first layer. I'm just going to do it, but hopefully now you'll know that that's the step you have to do next. You have to try and work it out for yourself if you can. And there you have it. Now we have the white layer and the first layer of the cube. Yeah? The next bit to do is called the second layer. So it's the middle slice, okay? You'll see that the center pieces are already in place. They don't move. So you just need to fill in these corner pieces so that you've done 2 layers. It will take you a lot longer than it takes me, especially on your first time, but that's okay, because that's the point. You have to work it out. So there you have it. We have 2 layers solved, okay? You have the white, and we have then 2 layers of the Rubik's Cube solved. Now, the last part, which is a few parts, but the last thing you have to do is to solve the top layer. Now, this is, of course, the most difficult, because everything you do to the top layer will have an effect on these 2 layers you've already solved. And so obviously you need to work out how to solve this, how to make this layer in the right order without affecting these 2 layers, okay? And it does get complicated. Now, I think there's one part of the top layer which you can solve by yourself without looking on YouTube, and that's the cross, okay? As you can see here, I currently have an L shape on top. But basically, it doesn't matter what's in the 4 corner pieces of the yellow edge. You need to look at the cross, and we don't have a cross yet, okay? So it's actually quite easy to get the cross. You just have to work it out. That's a cross. Now, if there's some corner pieces filled in, it doesn't matter, just as long as you've got the cross. And this is as far as I think that anybody can come basically by themselves. I think after this is when you need to start looking on YouTube. Dr. Rubik, who designed the cube in 1970s, did it, but I think it took him about 6 months and lots of maths on paper with a calculator and things like this. So it's very, very complicated. Basically, my advice is you can do the first layer, you can do the second layer, you can get the cross, but then you need to get on YouTube and find out how to do the last bit. So there are two steps that you need to do to do that, and basically there's no way but to learn them. So you have to go on YouTube, and that's the first step that I've just done, is to make the whole of the layer yellow. That's called orientation of the last layer. So you're orienting the yellow sides. And the last step is called permutation of the last layer. So basically you can see that the last layer is all yellow, but the sides are not yet right. And there's a bunch of algorithms on that too. You just have to know them. So you have to just do one like that. And that is how you solve the Rubik's Cube. It's not that difficult, okay? People can solve 5 by 5s, they can solve 13 by 13. That means there's 13 cubes this way and 13 cubes that way. The 3 by 3 is not that difficult. It seems daunting, and I honestly thought that I would never ever be able to solve this. But actually, it takes a couple of weeks of a little bit every day, maybe an hour a day, but it is absolutely possible. So if you just have a think about it, put a little bit of time into it, you absolutely can solve the Rubik's Cube. And that would be something great to achieve during the lockdown. If you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed my video on how to do a Rubik's Cube. I hope that it gave you just the basics, just the things you need to get started. And after all, the most important thing is time, and that's the thing that we have lots of at the moment. So thanks again for watching. I'm going to be making subsequent videos on how to juggle, how to learn a foreign language at home using online resources, how to spin a pen around your finger, and all sorts of silly things. So please do come back, and thank you once again. Until next time.